Have you ever felt so scared and alone that you thought you would never see a way out of the situation you're currently in? Or have you felt that the end of your suffering is only getting further away from you while the suffering itself is getting closer? Well, there are numerous juveniles in the criminal justice system who feel just that. Solitary confinement is responsible for the horrible feelings these juveniles experience, which some also call the silent killer. Today, we will be exploring the impact of your solitary confinement on juveniles and discussing potential strategies to address and prevent this issue. By the end of this informational video, you will learn about the many factors of solitary confinement that ultimately contribute to its reputation as the silent killer. Solitary confinement, often referred to as the silent killer, is an inappropriate and detrimental environment for a child. According to a report cited from solitarywatch.org, at just 13 years old, Encino Macy felt his first traumatic experience within the juvenile justice system, solitary confinement. I was placed in solitary lockdown in a small cell for up to 24 hours a day, several different times before I was out of my teens. And although you can't see them, I bear permanent scars from this treatment. These words were from Encino, and unfortunately Encino is not the only youth who have experienced such psychological trauma during their time in the system. For many, this trauma persists into adulthood and often creates ongoing challenges. According to the Journal of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law, numerous cases, including V.W. versus Conway, have demonstrated that solitary confinement within the juvenile justice system is often regarded as cruel and unusual punishment, thereby infringing upon juveniles' Eighth Amendment rights. Moreover, research indicates that solitary confinement has a significant psychological impact on juveniles as their brains and emotional maturity are still developing. An article written by the APA stated that solitary confinement should never be used as a punishment or a disciplinary action against a juvenile. Instead of juvenile solitary confinement, youth detention staff should use evidence-based training to come up with a plan for youth development and positive youth learning experiences. As noted in an article published by Gagnon 2020, the COVID pandemic increased use of solitary confinement and restricted in-person communication with family and loved ones, which has significantly heightened the adverse effects of social isolation. These effects include, but are not limited to, an increase in behaviors associated with depression, anxiety, anger, psychosis, and suicidal thoughts. Many incarcerated individuals already have pre-existing physical and mental health conditions, and the practice of solitary confinement and similar forms of isolation can further aggravate these symptoms. Stated in the Digital Common Law website, during the month of December in 2015, the Nelson Mandela rules were established following extensive federal and constitutional cases. These rules define solitary confinement and ultimately prohibits its use for prolonged periods of time. In 2016, President Obama signed an executive order banning solitary confinement in the federal juvenile prison system. Reports have indicated that the use of solitary confinement should be considered as a last resort. It is recommended that the use of solitary confinement should only be utilized in emergency situations. To summarize the key points discussed in this presentation, we covered the impact of solitary confinement on offenders, the effects of COVID-19, which included the isolation and seclusion of youth in detention, and then first-hand accounts of how youth like Encino experienced solitary confinement. We also reviewed the history of federal and constitutional legal cases related to the stop of solitary confinement, which is also reviewed as a form of cruel and unusual punishment. Although there has been significant progress, there is still more to be made. If you're interested in contributing to efforts aimed at eliminating solitary confinement, you can educate yourself on the Solitary Reform Act and also check out the Advocacy Toolkit. Thank you for watching. Bye.